Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys? Hi. I hope you are having an awesome Monday or had an awesome weekend. And if you're watching the replay, I hope you're having an amazing whatever day it is for you right now. If you are new to Content and Coffee, this is about a 15-minute chat on a different topic. And they're typically themed for about like a few days or a week. But it's really just to add value to your day so that every day you're getting a different tip or some sort of information that would really add value to your life as you build your consulting or coaching business. So, again, my name is Nikki Nash. The way these guys work is I will walk you through a tip or a trick, as I just mentioned. I keep notes over here, so I may or may not glance. Just to make sure that I hit all the points that I laid out for you today. And then at the end, I ask that if you have questions, you just type them in either at the end, right before I hop off, or you post them in our Facebook group, which is Fempreneur Collective, which you should be a part of if you're watching this video. And I will answer all your questions. Just use hashtag Ask Nikki Nash. So this week is all about creating content through email. And so today's topic is specifically around the death of the newsletter. And for some of you, that may be great news. For some of you, that may be terrible news. But essentially, today's topic is really just to talk to you about why I think the newsletter is dead and what's really there to replace it, and how you can still use newsletters if you choose to, but I would recommend kind of giving up on the newsletter train. So let's begin. For those of you that have ever received or seen a newsletter before, the way I really look at them when you get an email is kind of like an old school bulletin or like a blast of here are all the different things that are happening with my company or my business. And a lot of times folks may go, well, I don't want to overwhelm my audience by sending them too many emails, so I just send one, maybe once a week. It has everything they need to know, and it's just all right there. And I totally get that kind of thought process around, hey, I don't want to, overwhelm my audience, and they're not going to read all the emails. Anyway, if I send them a billion, so I really just want to send them one that has everything. Get that philosophy completely. Now, I'm going to share another point of view and also kind of go through why I think the newsletter is dead. So let's say from a business perspective, your point of sending a newsletter is to really, one, build a relationship with your target audience. Let's say, two, you want to keep them up to date and informed with what's going on. And let's say, three, you want to make their life easier and you don't want to be too much. Totally get it. So let's go with breaking down the newsletter. So let's say you send a newsletter once a week or once a month, and it's going to your target audience, and you have pretty decent open rates because people are like, oh, okay, you're sending a newsletter, maybe it always has a sale in it or something interesting along those lines, so they open it. But what typically happens with newsletters is there are maybe like 3 or 4 different things for somebody to engage with. So they may open the email, but then once they're in the email, it's just kind of like so much is going on. They may like glance and only choose to click one thing, or may not click anything. And so when you think about it, if one of your objectives in sending out the newsletter is to take your dream client or the people on your list from one place to another place, it honestly may not happen with the newsletter because you've given them so many call to actions. And realistically, people like to just keep things simple, and it's like, all right, I'm reading this, there's one call to action, there's one thing for me to do, got it. And so with newsletters, what typically happens is you have so many different call to actions that hey Lovey, hey Neve, you have so many different call to actions that it's kind of like, okay, where do you actually want me to go if I'm receiving that newsletter? So I like to think that, while on one end it's, hey, I'm not really bothering my audience because I'm only sending a newsletter once a week or once a month, and it has everything they need right there. Another way of looking at it as, well, you may not be flooding their email. It's like giving them a big, like, instead of giving them an envelope of mail, we're going to go back to snail mail, every like few days that has different pieces of information and steps they need to take, you give them a huge envelope of everything, and the likelihood that they're going to go through the whole envelope is pretty slim. So that's one of the ways that I look at newsletters. Is it's kind of like, great, it's maybe not as frequent and you're not overwhelming them, but it's so much information that, you know, people don't tend to, you know, go to all the options for them. Now you may be saying, Nikki, well, I don't want them to go to all the options. I just want them to choose which is best for them. Here's my thinking on that guy. My thoughts on that is that you're then saying, hey audience, instead of me really getting to know you better and only giving you information that's important and of value to you, I'm going to put the onus on you. I'm going to give you everything I got, and I'm going to let you try to scour through all of this and figure out what's relevant and important for you. So we'll talk about it kind of in a later Content and Coffee, but this is where segmenting your audience plays a role. And really, segmenting historically has been like, oh, well, they like fashion, or they like, you know, rhinoceroses, so I'm going to send them content about fashion or rhinoceroses. But you're like, Nikki, that was a very weird example, but there was a point to that. People may have high-level buckets of what they're interested in, and you may want to like think, oh, I'll segment them that way. But another way to segment, and you'll get more of this content throughout the week as we continue to talk about email sequences, is that you can say, all right, I created a piece of content around how to grow your email list. And I can assume based off of that you would really care about growing your email list. And there's so much information I could share with you about growing your email list. So instead of kind of giving you a entire book on growing your email list and throwing it your way, I could scatter that out. Like, let's give you a tip every couple of days and then follow up with you and say, like, how did that work? Were you able to implement it? What's going on? Share in the Facebook community, things like that. So if you're kind of like, all right, Nikki, I'm starting to track what you're saying, but not completely, let's do a quick little recap on where it was going. So email lists are important. And I think, you know, for the most part, people get that. Now, when you do an email blast or a newsletter, where I'm coming from is that you're sending so many call to actions to a person that they're only going to take but so many, maybe one, maybe none. And the likelihood that they're going to go back, find your email and go, they also mentioned some other article I think I wanted to read, but I can't remember, and then go back and open it is pretty slim. So one of the reasons why I think newsletters are dying is because it's just too much content at one time for a consumer, and the onus is on them. You're really not making their life easier, even though it may seem like you are because you're not flooding their email. You're not making their life easier from the standpoint of you're just giving them a list of everything that may be important to them or of interest to them, instead of actually finding out and having them discover for themselves and then hopefully click on it. And when you're competing with other companies or brands that are actually saying, no, we're getting to know our audiences really well. We know what blog posts they click on. We know what Instagram posts they like. I'm being a little, detailed here, but if you really know your audience's behavior and you're like, hey, I can track what they're doing, and then send them specific content that's important to them, that is way more likely to add value to their life than just saying, here's this big newsletter with a bunch of information. I hope you find what you're looking for. And it honestly makes your audience, your end user, feel special because you've customized the content that you're sending to them based off of what you already know is of interest. So that's why I gave the whole email list example. Like if I know somebody wants to grow their email list, then I'm going to send them content around growing their email list. And then when I, want to mix it up a little bit, I'll go, all right, well, after you grow your email list, you'll probably want to know how to, nurture that list with an email sequence versus a newsletter. So then I may go, hey, if you're interested in this, you may want to read about this, and then put them on a whole nother trail of content that I'll continuously feed them because I know that that's something that they're of interest in based on their behavior. So that's one of the reasons why I'm like, okay, if I can, instead of sending a newsletter, which would be here like that newsletter that's a lot of content, and I can instead send maybe a little bit more frequently. Maybe I email you 3 times a week instead of once a week. But each email has a very specific call to action and a very specific piece of information that's of value to you. You may not read all 3, But maybe let's say with that process, you'll read 2 out of 3, where with my newsletter, you'll open it and you will click on 0 to 1 thing. Then I've got you a little bit more engaged. The other thing about kind of the newsletter philosophy of I won't email you too frequently that I get concerned with is that then it's really easy for people to forget that you even exist. And so we as a humane group of people as humans have gotten into the habit of sending like or receiving about 5 bajillion emails a day. And so I totally get that there's a lot happening in people's email box. And on one end, it's like, yeah, it's really annoying that you get emails all the time. On the other, it's like, I only get annoyed at the emails that aren't adding value to my life. So I say that because if you are sending a newsletter, it may be the first to go on the emails that I don't want because it's not adding specific value to my life. Versus if, let's say, you email me 2 to 3 times a week and each email is actually really adding a value to my life, I won't mind that you're emailing me a couple of times. It's kind of like, oh, I don't mind if you call me all the time if I like you, but if I don't like you, I find your calls annoying. That sort of philosophy or mentality there. So that's kind of a little bit deeper into why I'm like, oh, the newsletter, probably not going to continue to make it as long. Now, I will say that there are certain businesses where doing a newsletter makes sense, especially because like if you're a small business that sells products or something along those lines, you may not have the resources to do some sort of email sequence, and a newsletter is better than nothing. Like, so I'm not saying that nobody should ever do a newsletter. If you have email addresses, you should absolutely be contacting your list and building a relationship with them. My point is that if you have newsletters and you have the ability to just go, actually, I'm going to segment my list based on their behaviors and send them emails that are really adding value to their life a little bit more frequently, I think that's the smarter approach, especially if you have a service-based business, because the whole point here is to really continue to add value to their lives. So that is another thing to say about death of the newsletter awesomeness on the email sequence. Now, if you are really, really curious about email sequences, the next few days of this week, we are going to spend a little bit deeper in terms of talking about how do you create an email sequence? What is kind of the real value? The value of the email sequence is really going to come to play tomorrow. But just to start highlighting it, is that if we had in Camp One, I'm going to keep the sides the same. If on Camp One was the newsletter and we said you wanted to, not bother your list too much and you wanted to give them a lot of options on content, and you wanted to, at least be in their sort of awareness, where the alternative would be is that there are a lot of opportunities for you to instead it's going to require a bit more effort and content, but the value is much higher. I found for me personally, in the past I've done email newsletters where it was kind of like, hey, here's a list of all the articles I find interesting. And it's not that they didn't do terribly. People opened them and would click on maybe like 1 or 2 articles. Half the time they weren't my articles because I only had but so much that I had written that I could share, but I was getting some engagement. Whereas now, I do purely email sequences. And one of the best part is that I do them I do them all the time. I'm constantly writing emails, but depending on where my community is coming from, they always go through a certain series of email sequences. So here's what I mean by that. When you do a newsletter, you write the newsletter once, you send it out to everybody on your list, done. And then you constantly write the same, or oh my goodness, can't speak English, new newsletters based off of what's going on in your business today. Now, the other approach is if I am really getting to know my audience and their behavior, I write an email sequence and different people will get different emails from me based off of where they are and where they're interested in. So put another way, if I have somebody who's like, I am literally just starting to build my my business, they may find me through a piece of content that's out there about like the 3 things you need to do today if you want to start your coaching or consulting business tomorrow. Now, if Susie, I'm going to make up people, if Susie clicks on that piece of content today, she's going to be put through my initial email sequence that will speak with her and go deeper into, okay, you got my 3 things you need to do today. Let's keep that going. And every, few days, I'm going to give you a new thing that you could be doing to help you grow your business. Let's say Susie clicks on that today. Now, in 15, 20, 30 days from now, let's say 30 days from now, Beth clicks on that same piece of content. She's going to get the same email sequence that Susie got 30 days previously. So in essence, I meet people where they are and give them the content that they want right now for their situation, versus the newsletter approach is kind of like, here's what's going on with my situation right now, and I'm going to just share all that with you. And so it's really meeting your dream clients where they are and adding value to their life where they are right now. And you're able to create these sequences that automatically happen based on where your dream client is. Now, I'm not saying that I never do a broadcast email or something that would maybe not literally be a newsletter, but would serve that purpose of, let me tell you what's going on with my business right now. I absolutely do that, but I don't do them every week or every day. I do it when it makes sense. So for example, for me this week, I'm actually offering free assessments. I'm only opening a couple of slots, but what I'm doing is for folks that are really looking to create content that adds value to their dream clients' lives and wants my kind of tips on how I do that, and then be able to leave a conversation with me with a draft of a piece of content that they can then finish fleshing out and post and start attracting their dream client. That's something that I'm offering this week, and that's something that I would then put in an email broadcast. Now, everybody would get that regardless of if they came in to my email list through a piece of content that says, like, let me help you start your business tomorrow, versus, oh, you've already started creating 5K a month with your business and you want me to help you get to 10K a month. I've got you. Here's my list of emails there. So the reason why I'm really hitting home, I think newsletters are dead, is because the newsletters are much more about you and what's going on in your business, and where you're really going to, one, in the long run, meet your goals of growing your business, but two, where I really care most, helping and supporting your actual clients and potential clients. It really has so much more to do with them and where they are, and with what content is of importance to them. And when you really focus outwards on the people versus inwards on, like, oh my goodness, this is so cool, what's happening with my business today, obviously everybody cares, that's not really the way that I recommend going. I recommend spending maybe the 1 or 2 emails that are timely. Definitely broadcast those out to everyone, but really spend the bulk of your time creating these email sequences where you're really thinking through, what is it like for this particular type of client for me? Let me create an email sequence that will add value to their life every 2-3 days, or maybe like 3 days a week, whatever it is you want to do, versus doing that kind of, I call it word vomit of a newsletter that's just like, here's everything that's going on, pick what's right for you. So if you walk away today with one thing, it's really around the reason why I think the newsletter is dead is because it's really not about you, the business owner. It's not about me. It's about your clients and your potential clients and what will really make a difference for them. And so if you think of, okay, I was going to write this newsletter, and start looking in how you create newsletters and what content is in there. If it's much more about, like, here are some cool things that are happening, or even if it's in your business, or even if it's, here's some things I think you should know, but it's like not customized to where that person actually is in their business, you may want to rethink it. So for example, I've done newsletters before where it was very much around like content creation, and I'm like, oh, everybody needs to know this. But the reality is that if you're just starting your business, you may not have needed to know that piece of content right now or today. It might actually be too overwhelming for them to like get this newsletter of like all the different things that somebody needs to know with content, versus me on the flip side, really making it about them and identifying what are the 2 or 3 different types of clients that I have, and go, okay, if you're here in your business, I'm going to send you specific content or email series around getting you from point A. I've done this little thing before, but if group A is here and they're trying to get here, then I'm going to only send them the email content that'll get them from here to here. And then for people that join my email list that are here, I'm going to get them from here to here. And then if people that join my list that are here, I'm going to get them from here to here. So everybody gets more of a customized email sequence versus a big broadcast newsletter for me all the time. Now, the other thing to note is once I get client A from here to here, then they'll get funneled into the email sequence that takes them from here to here, and it keeps going. And so what will ultimately happen is where I'll spend the most of my time once all of these pieces of content are created is really continuing to expand here. Because once I get, my last client from here to here, what's next for them? That's what I need to keep constantly thinking about. So we're going to spend the rest of this week really talking about how to create email sequences masterfully so that you're really adding value to your client's life and focusing on them versus focusing on you. And again, I'm not saying it's not ever appropriate to do, those broadcast emails that are like, hey, here's what's going on with me. But that's really, again, like where I'm focusing. So I promised it would only be about like 15 to 20 minutes today. So our time is up. But if you just joined, hi guys, absolutely watch the replay. It's going to be posted in about 3 seconds, a little bit longer than that. But as soon as this broadcast ends, I post it right away so you can watch from the beginning. Tomorrow and the rest of this week is we're really going to dive deeper into email sequences and what that really means and how you create them so that it's not only benefiting your business but really adding value to your dream clients' lives. And again, you'll also see in the Facebook group for me, if you missed a little bit earlier in the sequence, I am doing just a few free assessments for folks to talk about how they can leverage content to really add amazing difference to their lives from a business perspective and really grow their business. And the idea of this session is for you guys to walk away with one piece of content that's drafted out that will really make an awesome difference for your business. So that's what I've got for today. Take a look in the Facebook group for not just the post of this video, but also the free assessment that I'm doing this week. And I love you guys a lot, and you guys are amazing. And also, again, if you have questions, post in the group, #AskNikkiNash. Talk to you guys later. Bye.